Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching Your Finance Guy. Today's episode is the Real ID Act. So you check your mail today or a few days ago, and you noticed that you received your DMV driver license. You open the envelope, and blam, you get hit with, what's this? The ID or the driver license says federal limits apply on the top right-hand corner. If you're an immigrant or a foreigner, like my father who came from another country and is a citizen of America, realized, wait a minute, what is going on? Am I in trouble? Is something wrong? Why does my ID says there are limits? What are they limiting me from? Well, you run to your wallet, you check your old ID or driver license to see if it's similar. You know, something maybe you forgot that maybe your old ID has the same language and you just didn't realize it. Well, hell, you realize, nope, it's not similar, it's a little different. So the worry begins. You rush to DMV to find out if this is a mistake. You learn, nope, you are not the only one at DMV. There are many people waiting in line trying to find out what's going on and have the same questions. What the hell is federal limits apply? As you're standing in line, you see a big sign that says Real ID. You start reading the instructions on the wall and you're telling yourself, wait a minute, I have a real ID. It's called the driver license. When you get to the front of the line and you finally meet with the representative, you find out, well, hell, you don't have a real ID anymore. To get one, you have to provide documents. Documents? Yeah, documents. Crazy, I know. So in other words, your driver license is only good for driving. For identification purposes, it doesn't do anything, especially if you're going into a government facility, a military base, or you're going to the airport to fly domestically. You need a real ID if you want to fly domestically. It doesn't work the same way anymore. There are some exceptions of how you can get away with it, which I'll go into at the end of the video, and we'll go over the fixes. So anyhow, you guys ready for a quick lesson? Here we go. We're going to get into it. Just to give you a little overview of how this Real ID Act was passed. Because a lot of us have been sleeping. We didn't even know that this was going on. It happened behind our backs, under our noses, technically. So the Real ID Act started off as H.R. 418, in other words, House of Representatives, which passed the House and went stagnant. Representative James Sensenbrenner of Wisconsin, a Republican, was the author of the original Real ID Act, then attached it as a rider on a military spending bill, H.R. 1268, which stands for House of Representatives 1268, which is the Emergency Supplemental Appropriations Act for Defense, also better known as the Tsunami Relief Act of 2005. I know a lot of you guys know about this act. The House of Representatives passed that spending bill with the Real ID rider, 368-58, and the Senate passed the Joint House-Senate conference report on that bill, 100 votes to 0. President Bush signed it into law on May 11, 2005. Now, I don't think, or I believe, that George Bush did not have any idea of what he was signing off on. Because if I tell you what the definition of a rider is, you'll understand why I refer to this as a bill that was passed under our nose. In legislative procedure, a rider is an additional provision added to a bill or other measure under the consideration by a legislature, having little connection with the subject matter of the bill. Riders are usually created as a tactic to pass a controversial provision that would not pass as its own bill. Here's an example. You guys notice all the rulings that were being passed as far as, you know, if you're from these 7 Muslim countries, you cannot enter the United States as an immigrant and vice versa. And the court denied it many times for whatever reason. They had their reasons. They denied it and would not allow our president to do that. Now, think of it this way. you pass a law or a bill that is controversial, not a controversial, because controversial would be the writer. You pass a bill such as, let's just call it the terror bill. To avoid all terror, we're going to do X, Y, Z. We're going to strengthen security, and we're going to do this, that. And so everyone is gung-ho, and they said, this is a great bill. We're going to eliminate terror doing these things. So the bill is getting passed, but while this is happening and everyone is gung-ho, there's about 1,000 pages, and in that 1,000 pages, there's a small section from 368 to -58 that basically says, hey, you know what we're going to do? Let's just get rid of the Fourth Amendment. Let's take away people's Fourth Amendment. And the way we're going to do it is by making the people do these things. And by them going to DMV and doing vice versa, this will acknowledge that they're giving up that right. I mean, I'm not saying this. I did my research. I looked into it. There's a lot of different take, pro and con, so I don't hold a stance, but that's kind of the idea. You want to call it a conspiracy, call it a conspiracy. But anyhow, this was spearheaded by Homeland Security. The state should adopt the following practices in issuance of driver licenses and identification cards. 1. Employ technology to capture digital images of identity source documents so that the images can be retained in electronic or digital storage in a transferable format. They need to retain paper copies of source documents for 7 years or images for 10 years minimum. Or in some, it could be forever. We don't know. Things have been changing quite a bit. 2. Subject each person applying for a driver license or identification card to a mandatory facial image capture. When they take your photograph, it's an ultra-high resolution that captures your facial image, all the pointy features of your face to identify you from any photograph or videotape. In other words, if you go into the airport and you give them your real ID and they swipe it, your picture will pop up, and then they have a way to tell if you are who you say you are, compare it to the picture, which is pretty unique, I'll tell you. That's an awesome technology. I'm surprised we don't even have that. I honestly thought we did. All those images that they be doing where you're standing up like this and taking pictures, for the most part, I thought they'd be able to tell. Anyways, they're using this to track movement of every American everywhere they go. So in a way, it's a good thing. In a way, it's a bad thing. I don't know how you guys feel about it. You're diehard Americans that have been here for many years and established this country and put everything in together, are probably not too happy. So if you're a citizen of this country and you've lived here for many years, you probably don't like people watching over you and doing things, to that extent. And that's why a lot of people say, well, it's violating my Fourth Amendment. You guys are wanting all these documents, and I don't want to give them to you, especially the libertarians. Anyways, I believe we're on number 4. They're claiming this is to stop immigration. The legislation, however, says that state is barred from taking any actions if they do identify that someone has an illegal immigration status. They're required to get the Social Security information, but they're restricted from doing anything with that information should they find out if someone's an illegal immigrant. So the state cannot do anything. If your state does not participate in this federal requirement, which was mandated by the federal government, you will not be able to get an FHA loan. You will not be able to camp and go to national parks. You will not be able to enter government facilities. You will not be able to fly domestically. God, so many ways you can, be prevented from doing things. But honestly, this was one of the key things that I really wanted to discuss with you guys and give you an idea of what's taking place. So now that you know what's causing all this, the other issue now is the following. What is a real ID? If you apply for a real ID, the only difference is the federal limit supply comes off, and what they put on there is a star. That same star is for all 50 states. That mandates or confirms that you have verified your ID, provided all the documents to DMV, and now you're able to fly domestically anywhere in America with a California driver license or your state driver license as a real ID. You don't need to provide passport for domestic flying. It used to be like that before, domestic flying ID, but now they just made it a little more harder to qualify for it. If you don't have a driver license, if you don't have a real ID, and let's say you don't go through this process, you can still fly domestically, but you need your passport. And here's what strikes me. If you have a foreign passport and you want to fly domestic, you can. Now, I don't know if they're going to update the rules and change things, but if they do, you will soon know, and I'll update it on another video. But for right now, if you have a foreign passport, you can fly domestic. So if you have a driver license without a gold star, then you're barred from everything. TSA will not recognize any of it. U.S. Border Patrol will not. That means you won't have VA loan, FHA loan, no HUD, no SBA, no camping, no Medicare, no Medicaid, no Social Security. Any dealings with the federal government, all barred. And what I'm talking about is if the state did not accept this mandate that the federal government put out there, the state would be barred from even getting federal grant. So, in a way, I feel like the state was a little bit, to an extent, pushed to accept this mandate in order to keep the peace, get the grants, and be able to provide those services that we need to take advantage of as citizens of this country and residents of our states. So, another sad thing that I found out was that if you're married, you will need to present a marriage license for every marriage that you were in. In other words, if you were married to 5 different people, you need to present a marriage license with all the different aliases that you went under. So that's another thing that you have to provide. The federal government wants to know everything about you. So there you have it. How do you get a real ID? Very easy. You go to DMV with the following information. Before you go to DMV, what you need is a Social Security card, 1. You need a, not a driver license. Well, you do need your driver license. Make sure you take that. But you need a Social Security card. You could have a passport, that's 2, or a birth certificate, that's 2. And in addition to that, you also need a bill, a bank statement, a credit card statement, utility, or taxes. You could take any one of those with you. So those 3 things are very important. You need to take those with you to DMV so they can identify and document that you provided these, and they'll probably make copies. In addition, make sure you take cash, because DMV will not do any transactions without cash. I walked into DMV, waited an hour and a half just to see the front desk person for a number, and they said, "Did you bring cash?" Nope. DMV is closing in 30 minutes. By the time I get cash, come back with traffic, it's not going to happen. So I have to go a different day. But believe it or not, DMV is so packed. I saw a lot of people waiting in line. So good luck. Good luck getting this done. Now, do you have to get a real ID? Not necessarily. However, we don't really know. There's a lot of cloudy information. We don't know what's really going on. If you don't have a real ID, and let's say you have a government ID, a driver license and a U.S. passport, and let's say you're applying for a government loan, I don't know if that will still impact you, even though the state is technically participating. So you should be able to apply, but I don't know the details. I'll find out, and I'll do an update video to tell you guys about it. But I hope this helps. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. And in the comment, ask your questions. I'll give you information. I looked into this for a couple days because my dad was worried, and I want to make sure I take care of him. I hate to see him stress. He's done a lot for me, and I want to make sure I can do it for him as well and take care of him and not let him stress with this stuff. But if you guys have the same questions, please reach out. Let me know. I'd be more than happy to help. I hope you guys enjoy this video. And if you liked this video and enjoyed it as much as I think you have, please leave a comment. Please like the video, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe, because I'll be posting more useful information that'll cater to your need as we go further. My goal is to continue to know things that we usually don't know about and inform you. So my next episode will be more bank related, but for right now, this is your finance guy And I'm going to have to call this episode The End. And I think I'll finish it off as that. Other than that, I have nothing else to say. I wish you guys a great day, and God bless America. Take care.
Press start.